All right. Good morning, everyone. I think we're live. If you guys in the live chat can let us know, that would be awesome. If you can see us and hear us okay. We want to make sure we don't have any technical issues going on. And there is a 20-second delay, guys. So, yeah, I think it's working. So the chat will be 20-second delay and we ourselves will be a 20-second delay. So, all right, everyone can hear us and see us. Good. Awesome. Well, how are you guys doing? We have Sina McCullough with us and obviously Joel Salatin, and we're here today to talk about their new book, Beyond Labels. And it's really good. I haven't finished reading it yet, but you guys did a really great job with that. So thank you for writing it for us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves first? I know you both have a really good story about yourselves that go along with this book. So, Sina, we can start with you, and we can go from there.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us on the show. We appreciate it. So my story, hopefully the condensed version, is that like all health stories, they're long, right?
Yep.
So I have a PhD in nutrition and a bachelor's in neurobiology, physiology, and behavior. So on paper, I'm supposed to be an expert in food. However, I actually developed an advanced stage of an autoimmune disease, largely from eating food. And so it started, actually now we know it started in the womb, but the most prevalent symptoms started in my early 20s when I was in college. Gastrointestinal symptoms, and they progressed over the next 20 years as chronic or inflammatory diseases typically do. I basically moved along the autoimmune continuum, getting more symptoms and getting sicker and sicker, acquiring more and more inflammatory diseases. And I had all kinds of issues. I had kidney stones. I had chronic sinus infections. As a child, I had chronic ear infections. Like I said, the massive GI issues. I had 5 miscarriages.
Oh.
I had a tumor that grew on my eye. And, the list goes on. And of course, sought help from medical doctors in, Western trained medical doctors for over 20 years, did all kinds of testing, even exploratory surgery, and nobody could figure it out. And then I hit a rock bottom where I developed, we didn't know at the time, but I had such a severe stage of rheumatoid arthritis that I couldn't get off the floor. I couldn't even wrap my hand around a cup to take a drink of water. My son had to bring, I would lay on the floor all day, and my 5-year-old had to bring a glass with a straw so I could drink water. I had severe muscle wasting, like a cancer patient would experience, even though I was eating like avocados straight, just whatever I could do. I couldn't maintain weight. I had leaky gut, of course. And my gut was so destroyed that even though I was taking a multivitamin and mineral every day, I developed 15 nutrient deficiencies.
Goodness.
They were so severe, I was diagnosed as borderline for both beriberi and pellagra, which are both diseases that lead to death. And both were eradicated by the mid-1900s in the U.S. But that's an example of what we're seeing. We're seeing a resurgence of these micronutrient deficiency diseases. As Joel can speak more to that, largely from the way our food is grown and processed. So anyways, I hit rock bottom. And what happened was this whole time, my husband and I are trying to find clues to figure out how to help me, since the Western medicine couldn't. And we had figured out a lot of my triggers, but there was just a handful we couldn't. So fortunately, I ended up just surrendering everything over to God and just asking him to please save me. And he did. The next day, he led me to a functional medicine doctor who did a couple tests that I needed. I wasn't aware of that kind of functional testing at the time. And those tests gave the final clues that was a handful of the final physical clues, let's say. I made some changes, and I did chelation to get rid of, I had arsenic poisoning from consuming, from consuming gluten-free, supposed gluten-free products. So we did like chelation. I figured out my last final food triggers, removed those, corrected the nutrient deficiencies. And within a year, there were no measurable signs of disease or inflammation in my body anymore. But what was interesting is that even though they couldn't detect any disease, when I ate, for instance, like too much sugar, I would have pain in my right forearm.
Wow.
So obviously it's a signal of inflammation. So I continued on my journey, and what I've realized in watching numerous hours, like hundreds of hours of health summits and spiritual summits, my conclusion was that all diseases stem from an emotional root cause. So there's many, many layers to peel back when you're trying to reverse or prevent a disease. The physical aspects, like the biochemistry that we measure with these functional medicine or the laboratory tests you get in the Western medicine doctor's office, that's just one layer. That's just the physical layer.
Right.
So you have to peel it back. And at the root cause, there's this emotional component. And so and that's largely what I do now is, I help people identify their physical triggers, but we really target the emotional triggers to fully heal. So that if you'll notice, when you hear like functional medicine doctors, for instance, who have successfully been able to reverse diseases in their patients, they'll often say they're in remission.
Right.
But I don't say that. You're in remission if you've only addressed the physical issues, but once you've addressed the emotional root causes of the disease and you freed yourself, like Joel and I talk about, you free yourself of the labels that have put limiting beliefs on you, then you can have a full recovery. You are fully healed.
Right.
So that's what I've done now is, I spent the last couple of years researching how to free yourself of those labels and how to free yourself of those emotional burdens so that you can be fully healed. So today, I can eat sugar. I don't have the pain in my arms. I have no food sensitivities anymore, reverse them all. No problems anymore.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
I'm very grateful.
Yeah, to go from one end of the spectrum to the other is just incredible. I mean, that's a testimony. And you wrote a book about it, which is even more awesome. So that, brings us to Joel. And a lot of us know your background. And it's fun I'm going to let you talk about it in a second. But it's fun. I've started reading this book. I'm about halfway through to see you guys converse back and forth in this book, and it's like no other book that I've ever read, so I really enjoy that. So Joel, let us know your background and and your contribution to the book.
Sure. Well, I grew up here on the farm. Mom and Dad bought this place in 1961, and it was the most worn out, gullied rock pile in the whole region, so it was cheap, and that's one of the reasons why they bought it. And Mom and Dad never made a living from the farm. Mom was a high school health and phys ed teacher. Dad was an accountant, and so they used the off-farm income. Typical story, homestead, farmstead story. Used off-farm income to pay the mortgage. That took about 10 years. And then I'm coming up in high school, and I loved the farm. I had chickens when I was 10 years old, and sold eggs, and I really wanted to be here. And I'm starting to think, well, how can I make a living on this farm? And Dad was a genius. I'm at the stage of life where the older I get, the smarter he was, and so I still miss him every day. But he died young. He died at 66, and now that seems really, really young to me because
right.
I'm bearing down on that myself, and. So anyway, when Teresa and I got married in 1980, we had a dream, and so we refurbished the attic of the farmhouse and lived up there. We called it our pit house. Sina's right. I mean, words are powerful. You can either call it we're living in the attic, or you can say we're living in a pit house.
Right.
And it was a great thing. Mom and Dad gave us a lot of space. We had our own kitchen. We didn't share anything. We didn't share a bathroom. All we shared was an entrance. So we could go. We occupied the the second and third floors of the house, the attic and second floor, and Mom were first floor and kind of a subfloor, and Mom and Dad. And so we, we lived on $300 a month, drove a $50 car, and if we didn't grow it, we didn't eat it. We never went anywhere. We didn't have a TV, still don't. Entertainment was, books and radio, and the kids played with Tupperware in the kitchen cupboards, and we didn't need children's toys. I mean, we had books and Tupperware to play with. What else could you possibly need?
Right.
And so we started this healing process on the land, and I've watched our land go from, rocks and gullies to arguably the most verdant farm in the community as we, started doing multiple livestock, moving them around, all the things that we did. And today, we supply, thousands of families. We have 20 full-time staff. It's not a backyard operation by any means. It's grown a lot. And every day we hear stories from customers about their own healing journeys, and it's gratifying. It's remarkable that food, that life can be so transformative. And when you realize that so many farms, so many food production systems concentrate on something that ends in CIDE, which is of course the Latin suffix for death.
Right.
You begin realizing what a different worldview paradigm this idea of we're gonna concentrate on living things,
right,
not killing things, and so it's just been very gratifying. And so Sina and I did a program here in Virginia, down in Richmond, and I hadn't heard her speak, and so we kind of shared an evening of presentation, and she went first, and I just I do a lot of speaking around the world. It takes a lot to get me excited about a speech anymore, because I hear so many of them, and I'll tell you what, I was on the edge of my seat, took 12 pages of notes. Where in the world does this lady come from? And
what a compliment!
I know.
Yeah,
I'm blushing.
and what was cool was that this was one of the first kind of foodie talks that I'd heard. I mean, she eviscerated the government programs. She eviscerated Western mainline orthodoxy. She eviscerated everything, and then had the audacity to say, "We don't need more agencies, and we don't need more government control." She said, "You're in charge. It's up to you."
Absolutely.
What a refreshing message. And so then when she got done, then I went up and did my thing, and then when it was over, we kind of got into each other there, and she just said, "Why don't we do a book together?" And I, of course, why not? And I have no idea who you are, but I love your message, and that was enough for me. And so we did. And Amy, you're right. I don't, in our genre, in this whole kind of wellness food genre, I don't know anything. There are plenty of books that are co-authored,
right?
But there's always this tension. You can feel it in a co-authored book, between the tug between one person talking, another person talking, as they've tried to squeeze each of their voices, into a composite, voice, a hybrid voice. That's hard to do because we have our personality. And so Sina and I decided, why don't we just not have that tension, and we'll just write it like a play, like a dramatic play. And there's two actors, and we just do our play. And I think it's really refreshing. And about the time you get tired of Sina, you get me. You get tired of me, you get Sina. So it really moves the action along. It's quite
does.
profound. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love it too, because as a writer, you can tell different writing styles, and you both have different writing styles, and it's fun. It keeps you engaged, and you feel like you're learning. Well, you're learning from two different experts at one time on two different things, and what I liked in the beginning, Sina, you say in the book, you said some people might say I made a lot of mistakes, but I think that's part of the journey. And I think that was so important for you to say, because, that's something we say at Homesteaders of America too. It is a journey. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up. You don't have to get it right tomorrow. And you guys really showed that in this book with practical steps for people to take control of their health. And I love that it's not a diet book or anything like that. It's literally going beyond the labels. You're making people question, why does it have this in it? Where did it come from? Why did it come from there? And you're connecting it to health, overall health. In homesteading, we like to grow our own food, but the step before that is buying organically or going to Joel's farm and buying from there, and then getting into growing your own food. And so you guys break it down exactly that way. You go from, you give us a chart in the book, and you go from the worst you can do to the best you can do, and the journey in between. Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how the book works with the reader?
Well, Sina came up with this idea of the continuum. So Sina, I get to use the word first this time. A continuum, and the idea is that even if you're currently eating out of the Sheetz gas station, which is kind of the food bottom feeders of the world, if that's your current reality, we start there, because a lot of people do start there. One of the big problems in persuasion is trying to move people too fast. Those of us that have been doing this for a while, it's old hat, and we don't realize that we're talking to infants, to babies, if you will, and you can't give them a vocabulary that includes things like ostentatious if you don't first start with A says or or a. You got to start with that. And so we essentially this continuum allowed us to both challenge people that there is a paradise out there that you can get to, but it also allowed us to start people non-judgmentally, without prejudice, wherever they happen to be. And it was just a great idea that Sina had. The email, the back and forth emails. I mean, Sina, we spent 6 months at least, just figuring out the theme and the idea, and we went back and forth, and we were both learning. I mean, for me, that's probably the most memorable part of the book, was all that that pre-stuff that she and I went through as we tried to zero in on the message and the format. And it wasn't easy, but fortunately she didn't give up.
Bless
you, Sina.
Well, yeah, it had its challenging moments, but it was fun. But it was fun because, like Joel said, he learned from me and I learned from him. And Joel, from the beginning, said, we're not going to write one word on paper until we have this hashed out, and that was brilliant, because when we were ready, the book just flowed, right? And it kept us on point. And it really prevented us from having conflicts down the road, because then we were on the same page. But that was a challenging part, but it's also the beauty of the book, because it was challenging because we come from two different spaces, right? And Joel was born and raised in that healthier environment, Where
Right.
I was born and raised in this with the standard American diet, going subscribing to Western medicine and thinking that they're gods. And so we came from two different spaces. And then even in that present moment, Joel communicates a lot with farmers, right? That's a lot of his network. Whereas I connect with consumers, particularly the busy mom, as a homeschool mom myself. So we were merging those two worlds together, trying to understand each other and trying to bring those two audiences together where we can mutually honor and respect and encourage them and meet both of those sides where they are without any judgment, and have something to offer in this book for all of those, for everybody across the board. I mean, the book is really for anybody who eats food,
Right. Yeah,
Right.
it is.
Yeah, Joel and I decided early on that our target audience was going to be for the busy mom, because mothers, women, statistically speaking, buy roughly 80 to 85% of all the groceries in the grocery store. And so we wanted to target that audience. We wanted to make it user friendly for them so they didn't have to read through an entire book just to get to a diet protocol at the end. We wanted it to be simple. So like a soccer mom could be, watching her child play soccer. When the other team's on, she could be reading a tip, and it's just done like that. Like, 5-10 minutes, you're done with the tip. So go ahead.
Well, and by the same token, we don't see that as neglecting the farm community, especially the homesteading, farmsteading community that's trying to maybe, direct market to 10 people or start small with, a few neighborhood customers or church customers, or maybe you live next to a city, some customers there, because I think that our messaging is part of the messaging, the articulation that people who want to sell to their neighbors need to know, because we farmer homesteaders, hey, we're in our groove, right? I mean, we're in our groove, and sometimes we don't appreciate the perception and the world that that the urban money revolves around. And so with Sina's, urban living and my rural living, her, growing up probably with Coca-Cola in the house, me growing up with no Coca-Cola in the house ever, those, and then preserving those voices through the book, it's unusual. It's just unusual. And I've read a lot of books, and I've written several books, and it's really unusual. I get into it sometimes and just, oh wow, we said that,
I don't remember writing that.
Yeah.
Right. Right. You get in the groove. That's right. You get in the groove.
You do.
Yeah.
Yes,
but
you
that's
do.
an excellent point, because I'm asked to speak in front of farmers. Like Savory flew me out to California, and it was largely a farming audience, and I was intimidated. I thought, what am I going to be able to teach a farmer? Like,
a lot.
Well, yeah, I didn't see it at that time, and they said, we want the consumer perspective. So I did. I talked with them about my story, the journey, how to reverse disease. I talked with them about grass, that I found, GRAS. And what was interesting was the farmer's main question for me was, how do we relate to consumers? Like, how do we actually connect and get them to buy our product? Because, so oftentimes it's more expensive than the conventional product they're going to find in the grocery store. So like, what do we say? And that was the majority of the questions that I had received at that conference.
Wow.
And so that's one of the benefits of this book, that, as Joel mentioned, we break it down into these small bites where a farmer who's trying to convey this message can take that from the book and, relay that information to a consumer in a language that the consumer understands.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And what's interesting is, as Sina will attest, because she had several friends that she kind of, would feed these as we started, just to kind of till we kind of found our groove, if you will, our footing. She would feed some of these to her friends and get feedback, and we'd hash out, how much in depth. I know one of the big problems we had was how long to make these bites. Sina's original idea was, I want them to all be readable in like 5 minutes, and I said, well, there's some topics you can't give a good view of in 5 minutes. So we argued about that. We argued about a lot of things.
Oh my!
A sign of a healthy relationship. No.
That's right. That's right. Good relationship. And what I found exciting was that the farm, what I would consider farm minutia. I mean, things like what changes the different color of the color in egg yolks, for example. That was very appealing. Sometimes we feel, oh man, I must be boring. No, actually, people who eat food, they want to know this kind of stuff.
Right.
And they do. And so that was extremely affirming and gratifying to be able to offer in a non-alien, in an info-dense way that behind the curtain farm experience to somebody. So many, almost all diet books are just nutritional based. They don't dig behind the why, what makes one muscle tissue tender and dry like a chicken breast, but another muscle tissue tougher but moist like a thigh.
Right.
What does that? And so anyway, it was just exciting to be able to. I enjoyed Sina's excitement over learning my life minutia, and certainly I enjoyed having better ammunition to tell our customers, well, here's the nutritional stuff, the chemistry of it. This is the deal. So it really is a two-edged thing.
Yeah. So you guys go through these practical bites, is what you call them, and there's a lot of them, and they're good. And I think homesteaders will actually enjoy the book too, because we have a lot of new homesteaders this year, and they want to do it, but they're like, why? Why am I doing it? It's our why we're doing it. But besides the bites, you also have these sections called Chew on This. And you really offer a lot of good information. That I read one to my husband last night where you guys talk about radiation in food, basically. And I didn't know that. So, there are things that even, experienced homesteaders and farmers can learn from that. I didn't know that. And I read that. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm just like, why are you not more excited about this? He's like, well, I kind of knew that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. But so can you tell us a little bit more about the information that people are going to find in your book? Sina looks at Joel.
I'm like, go for it.
Have at it.
Well, we jump in with everything from what's behind labels in organic. I mean, like a lot of people don't realize that half of all organic feedstocks in the U.S. are imported through Istanbul, Turkey, for example. That's not common knowledge. And no, we're not trying to destroy the government organic certification label, but we want people to understand why, well, for one thing, for me, why our farm is not certified organic, under the government program. And so the beyond labels idea is beyond animal welfare certified, beyond fair trade certified, beyond organic certified, all these, certification things. And it ties into beyond your own labels. I'm paleo, keto, or I'm introvert, extrovert. It goes all the way back to, you're a messy, I'm a messier, I'm a cleanie, or I'm a starter, categories are how we communicate, and yet the nuances of food and farming are more they're more nuanced than simple stereotypes. And so we aren't afraid to tackle, chlorine in chicken processing, and why beef processing is different than poultry processing. One you use scald water, one you pull the hide off. I mean, it's visceral, okay? But that understanding helps to explain some of the different risks, vulnerabilities, and things in the food system.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So if I can piggyback onto that, I love that description. And I think for what my friends who have read the book, what they've really enjoyed is that we do explain food labels, taking you from the labels you'd find at the gas station all the way up through, the whole continuum. And then we take you beyond that label. So we unwrap that label for you, right? We decipher it. We do all that heavy lifting for you to explain the nuances, the loopholes, the deceptions that exist in these labels that you're going to find, to help you navigate your way through the grocery store and then beyond the grocery store. Hence, we're looking beyond these labels. And as Joel mentioned, it is largely focused on your food, but we do also focus on these other labels. So what I realized in my healing journey is that a lot of the disease formation stems from limiting beliefs that we carry around with us, and a lot of those start from childhood.
Right.
And so what we're trying to also do is help you, strip away the labels that you have identified with. So I'll give you an example. So some of them are what Joel had mentioned, people trying to heal and they're prescribing like, oh, I only eat paleo, or I only eat AIP or keto, and our point is that there's a time and a place for those types of diets, like I did AIP diet. It really did help me. But Joel and I are trying to say that harness your own power to connect with yourself, because you are the best healer, the best nutritionist that money could ever buy. You know yourself more than some kind of expert. So don't outsource your power to that expert. Learn how to communicate with your own body, because your body's needs change moment to moment. So for instance, I'll eat, if you came and stayed with me for a week, and we cooked meals together, for the first 3 days, you would probably classify me, label me as a vegan, right? I eat a high fat, I eat a lot of healthy fats. So someone, healthy, high fat vegan, right? And then on the next day, you'll see me eat meat from Polyface farm, right? And the way, the proportions of it, you'd probably say, oh, now she's paleo. Right. Right. It shifts like that. Now I'm pregnant. And I was telling Joel, I'm like, this is another example of listen to your body, because now that I'm pregnant, my body wants Polyface meat with every meal. Right. And it's totally happy with that. So what we're saying is, don't let them box you in, right? Don't confine yourself to these labels. Learn how to communicate with your body. And we have a tip in there about how to start communicating with your body. Another example of a label, and this one is really so critically important. The first few chapters of this book are dedicated to the power of belief and changing your perception and your focus from, to a positive thing. So for instance, I really pick up on this a lot now that I've been through my health journey. When you talk with people who are sick, they'll often say things like, my arthritis is acting up, or I have cancer. They've identified with it. It's my arthritis, right? I have fill in the blank of this disease. Those diseases are actually labels that are given to us by this Western medicine system. And And I know because when I didn't have a diagnosis for a long time. And then when I was pretty much on my deathbed, that's when I found that functional medicine doctor that gave me the diagnosis. And even though I was completely sick, like we knew I was dying, right? We knew I had something, some kind of disease. But the moment that he gave me the diagnosis, everything changed.
Right.
I just broke down and started crying. And my husband came in the room and I was like, I have a disease. Like, and he was like, what did you think you had? But it's true. It's true because you instantly identify with it. Hence, when you go into the doctor's office, from there on out, you check the box. I have autoimmune disease. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And when you do that, like Joel said, words are powerful. Your beliefs are so powerful that if you are constantly using those words and saying, I have this disease or my diabetes, if you're constantly saying those words, your body's hearing. Every cell in your body hears what you're saying. Your beliefs actually change your biochemistry.
Mm-hmm.
So by holding on to that label and reinforcing that label, you keep yourself sick.
Right.
So one of the first things that I tell my clients is stop talking about it. Stop claiming that it's yours, and you'll hear, like, when I talk with people, they'll ask me, oh, what disease did you have? Things like that. I don't ever own it. I'll say like, oh, I had inflammation. I don't have it anymore. And my mantra is I'm vibrantly healthy, happy, healed, and whole.
Absolutely.
And so even when I was sick, when I knew what was happening, I would say that to myself over and over again to try to strip away the label and to reprogram my biochemistry for healing instead of keeping it stuck in a phase of sickness. So just another example of the types of labels that we're addressing in the book and trying to strip all of that away to help you achieve your optimal state of health.
Awesome. Yeah, the mind is definitely a powerful thing. I mean, what you believe about yourself is what eventually manifests in yourself. And with any part of life, not even just health, but with any part of life. And Joel mentioned that when you started talking about that in your book, I was like, well, how would that pertain to Joel? And Joel mentions he called this little herd of calves, was it scuzz buckets or something?
Yeah.
And
scuzz balls.
He would always refer to them as the scuzz balls. And one of the farmers said, don't call them that. You're throwing bad energy at them. And so that was fun to read. Sometimes it's hard for people to realize that to connect food with health. And that's a mindset that we have to constantly overcome in any type of community. And, for me, I understand firsthand because I shared this with you, Sina, when we first started talking. We tried for years to have another baby and it would never happen. And so even I would say, well, I can't have any more babies. And I would always walk around and say, I can't have any more babies. And that's just how it is. And so, 9 years later, here I am starting a career and I'm like, well, we're not having any more babies, right? Well, I knew that my body needed something and I knew I wanted to take better care of my body. And I knew it started with food now that we've been homesteading for a while. And so I did go on a lax keto diet. And I lost a lot of weight and I felt the healthiest I'd ever felt. And 3 months later, I was pregnant. And it was like, surprise. And I'm like, oh no. And it was like, I'm just being honest. It was like, how am I going to run conference? But we were so happy. And actually we've enjoyed parenthood more. 10 years later, we're different people. We're probably better parents than we were 10 years ago. But, through the grace of God and just changing my lifestyle. And see, I was already homesteading. I was already eating healthy food. I was already doing all this stuff. But you were right, going on that limited diet for just an amount of time, not forever, actually cured whatever was wrong with me. And it's been a great testimony to share with other people. And so it's fun for me to share this book with other people, because food truly is where your health begins, good health begins. And it can be overwhelming for people, to not know where to start. And you guys truly make that easy in this book. It's very practical. It's non-judgmental. It's not overwhelming. And it's just like sitting down and reading a conversation that you guys are having. And so I think that everyone is going to get something from it, whether you're already eating good, at homesteading and doing your own thing and buying chicken from Joel, or you're not doing any of that at all and you're eating at Sheetz and McDonald's every day. No matter where you are, this book can pertain to you. And it encourages us to look beyond the label, just like the title says, to know where your food came from, to see how it's being created and processed, and why things are the way they are. So I've had you guys on here for 40 minutes and I wanted to see if there's anything else that you guys wanted to add about the book. And then if anybody in the chat, we have about 150 people watching. If anyone had questions, we wanted to open it up to some questions to you guys, and we can try to get to them. We wanted to only have about an hour. So if you guys want to add anything else about the book and then they can ask their questions, that'd be awesome.
I would simply just add, as both you and Sina were going through that some of the stuff might, as we've discussed, it might seem a little woo-woo, a little far out there. But then you realize that shaking up things a little bit, diversifying your routine, can be extremely valuable. And
right.
And so fasting for a day, so we discuss like hydrating your body. Most Americans are dehydrated, and so we talk about drinking water. You don't think about that as food, but goodness, keeping your body properly hydrated is as important as anything.
Right.
And just shaking things up, whatever, fasting a day, as Sina said, don't eat meat for a week, and then, or a couple of days, not a week, but a couple of days.
Not a week. No, don't do that. That's eating stuff.
A guy that sells meat's not going to say that, but we've joked here sometimes. If you came to our place in the middle of the summer, we eat out of the garden. In
right.
the colder winter, that's when we're hanging on to meat. I want that heat. I want that heat from meat. And so anyway, just to point out that some of this is a little, could be construed as a little bit of woo-woo, but a lot of important decisions get made in a state of woo-woo.
You're right, they do.
Yeah, and I'll add to that even though it may seem like woo-woo, to me it doesn't. To me, this is my life, but it may seem like that if you haven't been exposed to this perception before, in this space. But as Joel can attest, we have like 30 pages or something, like 8 size font of references in the back, like everything's original source references, even when it comes to what you believe, like you can change your reality based on your own belief systems. We have actually studies in there that we have referenced showing that somebody's beliefs about their genes actually changes their leptin level, a hormone called
right.
leptin. It changes it in real time. Right? You can read it in the book, but the quick summation of it is that these researchers in a study told fed a group of subjects a meal, measured their leptin level, and then when they came back for the next visit, they told half the subjects that they had a protective gene that would protect them from getting fat, and they told the other half, you don't have the protective gene, and the leptin levels changed dramatically. And the the real kicker of that story is that they lied to the subjects. The ones that, you know, they're like, you have this protective gene. They didn't really have it.
Right.
But the subjects, the researchers said, you have this gene, you will be protected. And their body responded accordingly.
Yeah.
So it does sound kind of woo-woo if you're not used to it, but you know, it's documented. Like
Right.
science is now catching up with things that we know intuitively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's
30,
great. I think
30 pages of 8-point primary source referencing is what happens when you co-author a book with a PhD.
That's right. That's right. And you should be happy that happened, because let me tell you,
I'm thrilled. You're never going to see that behind any of my books. No.
I mean, that's
Sina brings that to the table. It's very, very powerful.
That's good. You know, and Sina, as you know, you and I have talked about this before, especially in the world of social media, you know, everyone wants a reference. Where did you find this information? You can't just say it anymore. You know, you have to have backup for it. And so that's really amazing that you were able to take the time and put those references in. You know, going back to people's thoughts and things, I think we all forget that your brain is still part of your body. You know, it's an organ that works. And so just like your kidneys have certain functions and your liver and your stomach, your brain has certain functions too. And so it's not so woo-woo to think that it could control different parts of your body and different levels in your system. And so when we kind of open ourselves up to that and realize that a lot of, you know, it's like, I think it was Joel that said in the book, you're not going to basically do it until your mind is ready to do it. You're not going to get into it until you can say, okay, I'm ready to do this. And just sitting down and saying, okay, I'm ready to do this. You know, and I think, Sina, you said, you know, say to yourself, I love my body. I love who I am. I'm ready to take control of it. It might seem weird for some people. If you're talking to my husband, he'd be like, I'm not doing that. No, you know, but it's true. It how the brain works. And so I am so glad that you guys touched on that. I think it was really important. Let's see if we have any questions. Let me go through the chat. I don't know. Joel, can you see the chat on the right-hand side of your screen? I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We just have a few questions. Let me see. Question. Let's see. Is a carnivore diet something to look at when wanting to cleanse the body of impurities? That's probably for you, Sina.
Well, so I would say it depends on that person's body. You know, like we were talking about, really being able to connect with yourself and communicate with your body to ask it what it needs. I know there's a lot of like cleanses out there, and there's a lot of people who I respect in the health and nutrition field who also promote cleanses. My perception of that is that I don't think the body necessarily needs a cleansing shock, you know, in terms of like, I'm going to take all these supplements or I'm going to eat only this one way to try to cleanse my body. What I think is that you communicate with your body to figure out what your body needs in that moment. We talk about this in the book too. And it's not just about, you know, removing foods that your body doesn't like food sensitivities, intolerances, allergies. You know, clearly those need to be removed from your diet. But it's also wellness and finding your optimal diet is also about adding to your diet. So one of the big things that's missed nowadays is adding medicinal herbs.
Right.
So in our house, we try to add in a variety of herbs every day, as many different types of herbs as we can. As you know, as an herbalist, you know, as am I, there's a lot of herbs that actually work to detoxify the body.
Right.
So we add those in on a daily basis to get our medicinal detoxification from nature. And then the one type of detox that, if you want to call it a detox protocol, but it's more what our ancestors would have experienced, is fasting. So, you know, fasting can actually lengthen your telomeres, you know. So and there's a lot of research on fasting about how it can rejuvenate you, how it can eat up, the cancer cells or the cells that have low metabolic efficiency. So I don't do it right now because I'm pregnant, but when I'm not pregnant, I intermittent fast every day.
Yes.
So, and that has been just a blessing for me. My husband now does the same thing. He eats 2 meals a day with the intermittent fasting. In doing that, he actually, he is fitter than he's ever been. He had the beginning stages of lupus.
Okay.
And through removing some foods that were his triggers and adding in, like we said, these, herbs, and then changing his eating pattern. So doing the intermittent fasting and bringing him down to the 2 meals a day, the lupus is gone.
Amazing.
So I don't subscribe to one type of diet. I would suggest that you ask your body what it wants. And there's a tip in there where we walk you through how to do that. But for me, it's being consistent. It's not being perfect, right? Like we say in the book, we're not going for perfect. I try to go for consistent and consistently listening to what my body says. And when it needs to, then I would fast for longer.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually intermittent fast too, and that it does make a big difference in your body and your energy levels. So you actually answered a few of the questions. The other questions were about fasting and stop eating for detoxification. Carolyn asked, do you talk about GMOs and pesticides and the effects on the body within the book?
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. To a great extent, and that's the beauty of Joel and I working together, is that in every tip we give you the full picture. So we have a tip specifically on GMOs. We have a tip specifically on glyphosate, and weeding and other pesticides, but we really target glyphosate. And we work together on it. So, Joel will bring up, why is glyphosate used so much in farming, for instance, to give us that core understanding. And then I relate it to your health. And
Gotcha.
We have a whole, like for glyphosate alone, there's this bullet point list of scientifically backed up statements of, that's published in the scientific literature about all these diseases that are now related to glyphosate exposure. But we've done them in short bullet points to make them manageable for somebody to read, but we connect it to the biochemical level. So awesome. Yes, so definitely.
Cool. And then one of the biggest questions is, are you guys ever going to have the book on Audible? We'll finish with that question.
Well, I've done now three books on Audible, and I'm getting ready to do a fourth one. Those familiar with my stuff, I've done The Marvelous Pigments of Pigs, Folks This Ain't Normal, and Now You Can Farm, and I'm getting ready to do Your Successful Farm Business as an audio. And it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
Now everybody that gets one, they love it. They love it when when the author reads it. Well, especially when you have an energetic author. But yeah, we'll have to talk about that. I mean, the truth is, the ugly capitalist truth is that not very many audio books are sold.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I've done 4, and the income from the audio is about 5% what it is from print. And all of my books are available electronically as well. I mean, that's higher than audio.
Right.
And so I've kind of got this running joke with myself that the people who scream for audio are just a very verbal minority. and we just don't sell that many.
Right.
Now that being said, we sold in the first 3 days of You Can Farm coming out, which that's a 20-year-old book, and it just came out in audio. I think it sold 300 audio copies in the first 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
So there is a market there. And I guess some of it depends on how well the book sells. Look, if the book sells really well, we'll probably invest in an audio version. If it kind of langers, it probably isn't worth it.
Yeah, and I know for a book like this, for me, this is something I like to make notes in. So, sometimes books like this are hard. It's like my herb book. I had a lot of people ask for that in audio, and it's just kind of hard to do that when it's more of something you need to read and kind of take notes in and things like that. So awesome. All right.
It is available on Kindle.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
good.
So that's
and we have
linked.
We've linked that in the description of the video, so you guys can click on the links. And I think you guys are offering a coupon, right, of $5 off if you order on the Polyface website. I think
that was pre-order. That was
okay, pre-order.
Now that the book is out, that coupon is no longer available. We are selling it, I think, in the Polyface gift store for $27, which is $3 off the cover price. I don't know what Amazon is selling it for. Amazon,
that'll vary.
They're just a real whatever behemoth. It's a painful relationship. Nobody likes them, but everybody loves them. And so what do you do with Amazon? And and so it is what it is. But yeah, right now at the Polyface gift shop, we're offering it at $27, which is $3 off the cover price.
Okay, awesome. So you guys can get it either at the Polyface gift shop or Amazon or wherever you buy your books. And then also we are going to be giving away a copy of one of these on the Homesteaders of America social media outlets. So if you guys want to check that out later today, we'll have it up. So you'll have an opportunity to win a copy and share it so we can help get this book out. This is a really important book for everyone to read. So as much as you can share it, I know Sina and Joel will appreciate it. Well, thank you for joining me today, Joel and Sina. It's been a really great time. I'm so glad you guys came. I'm thankful we got through the technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that, Joel.
That's I'm just not I'm not a techie, and fortunately, Wendy was able to get us fixed up.
It's okay.
But Amy, thank you for your cheerleading support. We can't tell you how valuable and important it is to have voices like yours, who make a whole tribe in one fell swoop like this. Hopefully, people will maybe share this interview and stuff, and people will get it later. But to have cheerleaders like you in the tribe that are, moving the information forward. Goodness knows we're inundated and insulted every day with officialdom, especially right now with coronavirus. And when we started this project, of course, we had no clue that it would come out in the middle of this coronavirus thing. But my goodness, as we look back at it now, we realize no message could be as timely.
Absolutely.
As we talk about your microbiome. I mean, we talk about immunity all the time, and I'm dying for one of those officials in the the briefings about coronavirus to step up and say, "Okay, everybody, listen, America, let's take 1 week and put as much attention on immune function as we do trying to get a vaccine."
Right. Yeah.
Imagine what we could accomplish.
I know. And we could talk about that for another hour, but I read an article yesterday, because a lot like Sina, I like reading studies. I don't like going to news media outlets. And I had read this study about a month ago about how, asymptomatic people don't actually really spread the virus like they're saying. And so they finally put it out there, and it's like, people, just listen to me next time. I know what I'm talking about, So, well, it's been great. Our tribe is welcoming you, and we just love having you guys with us. And we really hope to see everyone and you guys, maybe not Sina, because she'll have the little one, but at a conference in October. It's looking more and more promising every day. So,
good.
Yes, it is. Great. Look forward to being with you.
Awesome, guys. Well, have a great day.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Amy.